Dear students, this session begins from page number 28. I will be reading from the middle of the first paragraph. So, what is there? We are beginning with the two assumptions made by the formalist critics. Let me read. The formalist critic, because he wants to criticize the work itself, makes two assumptions. What are the assumptions? 1. He assumes that the relevant part of the author's intention is what he got actually into his work. That is, he assumes that the author's intention as realized is the intention that counts, not necessarily what he was conscious of trying to do so, or what he now remembers he was then trying to do. So this is the first assumption. The first assumption is regarding the author's intention as we the readers understand. So according to Cleanth, the intention of the author is what the reader can understand from the reading of the text. It is not what the author had really planned to say to us or what the author has already tried in his mind to talk to us. I hope you got that point. That is, the intention of the author will be revealed through the reading by the reader. It is not given by the author as such. Yes, I have planned to tell this, or when I was writing that particular work, I was conscious of telling you this aspect through my work. No. The intention of the author should be what the reader can understand from the reading of the text. So the importance is given to the text, not to the author. So that is the first assumption made by a formalist critic. Now we are moving to the second assumption. And 2, the formalist critic assumes an ideal reader. That is, instead of focusing on the varying spectrum of possible readings, he attempts to find a central point of reference from which he can focus upon the structure of the poem or novel. So what is the second assumption? The second assumption is regarding the reader. What is the formalist idea about a reader? The formalist critic assumes an ideal reader. Who is an ideal reader according to the formalist critic? Instead of focusing on the varying spectrum of possible readings, what do we understand by spectrum? It is there in your glossary, page number 36. Spectrum, what is the meaning of it? A broad range of varied but related ideas or objects, the individual features of which overlap to form a continuous sequence. So what is a spectrum? Spectrum means a wide range of related ideas. So when a reader reads a text, a wide range of related ideas will be associated with his reading of the text. No doubt about it. Okay. So here, instead of focusing on the varying spectrum of possible readings, So, if an ideal formalist reader is not depending upon the varying spectrum of possible meanings. Instead, what he is doing? He attempts to find a central point of reference from which he can focus upon the structure of the poem or novel. He is just leaving the wide range of possible associations related with the text. He is just concentrating upon the text, and from his understanding, from his reading, he is focusing on a particular aspect, and from there he makes a basic understanding of a text. So what does it mean? He is not at all bothered about the wide range of possible associations related to the text. Instead, he is only concentrating on his own focus and what he could understand from the reading of the text. So these are the two assumptions made by a formalist critic according to Cleanth. So the first assumption is related to the author's intention. The second assumption is related to the reader, an ideal reader. Now I am going to the next paragraph. But there is no ideal reader. So what happens here? Why does Cleanth say that there is no ideal reader? Someone is prompt to point out, and he will probably add, that it is sheer arrogance that allows the critic, with his own blind sides and prejudices, to put himself in the position of that ideal reader. So in this sentence, Brooks is trying to place a critic in the place of a reader, that is an ideal reader. We all know who is an author and who is a reader. An author creates a work of art and a reader reads the work of art. So then what is the position of the critic? A critic can be equated as a reader. A critic reads and rereads the text and makes a lot of interpretations out of his readings. So in this paragraph, Cleanth is slowly trying to place the critic in the position of an ideal reader. So he says, there is no ideal reader. Someone is prompt to point out, and he will probably add that it is sheer arrogance that allows the critic, with his own blind sides and prejudices, to put himself in the position of that ideal reader. So what is the meaning of blind sides? So again, go to your glossary. There we can see the meaning of blind sides. Blind sides means lack of vision, inability to acknowledge a point of view. Blind sides, that is, sometimes some points we will not be able to understand at that particular moment. So that is why he is saying there is no one as an ideal reader. But we have to understand that a critic is a reader. There is no ideal reader, of course, and I suppose that the practicing critic can never be too often reminded of the gaps between his reading and the true reading of the poem. So, if we place a critic in the position of an ideal reader, we must understand that he will also have blind sides. and there is no ideal critic also. Okay, there will always be the gap between the mere reading and the true reading of the poem. Next sentence. But for the purpose of focusing upon the poem rather than upon his own reactions, it is a defensible strategy. Underline, that's a very important statement. So we all know that Brooks says that there is no ideal reader, likewise there is no ideal critic. But for the purpose of focusing upon the poem here means the work of art. So the intention of the formalist critic is to focus upon the work of art. So for that purpose, rather than upon his own reactions, his here refers to the critic. We are not concentrating upon the reaction of the reader or the critic, but we are focusing only on the text or the poem. For that purpose, it is a defensible strategy. It is a defensible strategy. Defensible, what is the meaning here? Here, defensible means, page number 36, justifiable. So here, Brooks is taking a justifiable strategy, that saying that there is an ideal reader. So reader, when he says so, he understands that there cannot be an ideal reader. He understands that. There can be the weaknesses or the blind sides of vision, all those things. But for the sake of concentrating upon a work of art, he is here making that defensible strategy. Finally, of course, it is the strategy that all critics of whatever persuasion are forced to adopt. So, if you are a critic, you are forced to adopt this defensible strategy, stating yourself as an ideal reader. Okay. So now I am moving to the next page, page number 29. And in the beginning, there are a few sentences given in parenthesis. So that is related to what we have just now told about the ideal reader. I read, the alternatives are desperate. Either we say that one person's reading is as good as another's and equate those readings on a basis of absolute equality and thus deny the possibility of any standard reading. Or we take the lowest common denominator of the various readings that have been made. That is, we frankly move from literary criticism into socio-psychology. To propose taking a consensus of the opinions of qualified readers is simply to split the ideal reader into a group of ideal readers. So what does he say here? So we have already told that we are placing the critic in the position of an ideal reader. So we are just stopping our thought there and we are thinking about another alternative. Otherwise, what can we do? Otherwise, we have to concentrate upon each and every reader. And we have to make discriminations between a good reader and a poor reader. A reader who understands more and a reader who understands only the basic concept. And we have to make impressions upon the readings of the different readers, and we have to make a chart regarding the status of the readers. And thus, we must be able to classify different types of readers and find out who reads well and who does not. So this is the other alternative. That is, if we are stating that there is no ideal reader or an ideal critic, we have to concentrate upon the particular readers, and we have to do a lot of socio-psychological process of analyzing each and every reader in the process. I will read again that part. The alternatives are desperate. It is very desperate to think about the alternative that we make instead of the ideal reader. We say that one person's reading is as good as another's and equate those readings on a basis of absolute equality. We have to compare the different readers and thus deny the possibility of any standard reading. We are not thinking about any standard reading. Okay, this is an ideal reader. We are not thinking about that. We are just concentrating upon each and every reader and making distinctions and making differences. Or we take the lowest common denominator of the various readings that have been made. That is, we frankly move from literary criticism into socio-psychology. So, each and every reader, they are associated with their own sociological or psychological backgrounds. So, if we try to analyze each and every reader, we have to think about the socio-psychology attached with those readers. So, that is a very strenuous and very desperate task. The easiest task is think about an ideal reader and likewise an ideal critic. To propose taking a consensus of the opinions of qualified readers is simply to split the ideal reader into a group of ideal readers. So this is there. These few lines, they are given in a parenthesis, just for your understanding. So with this, I wind up this session. I will be continuing our lesson in the next session. Thank you.